Hello, Whisky Adventurers. I'm Ralphie. Welcome to The Whisky Bothy, where the whisky reviews happen. Independent whisky reviews. Certainly reviews of less well-known, more unusual, and more unfamiliar whiskies, particularly Scotch whiskies, which is what I tend to focus on with this channel. And this is certainly a very good example of that. And also this is my final review of the year 2025. So I'm completely breaking with the tradition of reviewing something from the supermarket shelves. Because, to be honest, I just want to review an authentic, interesting, well-presented Scotch whisky for you to end the year on a high. Something I really notice is the blandification of big brands. They're starting to taste simpler, a little bit less complex, a little bit less sophisticated, because they're being excessively chill filtered. Frequently, some artificial industrial colourant is being put in to make the whisky look darker, and the flavours are really not quite as rich and as complex as they used to be, because it's the casks, you see, malt mates. It's frequently the casks. They're just not going further and as deep as they used to do in terms of maturation. And this really shows up when you start deep diving into the modern, contemporary whisky bottlings that are designed for people who slow down, take their time, smell a whisky, taste a whisky, and are looking for the components that make the experience amazing. It's just what we're looking for. It's such interesting times for the Scotch whisky industry, in fact for the global spirits industry, because around the world people are drinking less. People are drinking more carefully, more strategically, because the times, malt mates, they are a-changing. More about that in 2026. So let's get stuck into this. I was at a tasting in Glasgow in November, and this was on the table. And honestly, I hadn't even considered this particular single malt distillery. I've never actually reviewed this one before, and my channel's been on the go for almost 16 years. I have never ever reviewed a Balmenach. A Balmenach is a Central Speyside distillery, quite a large one, that supplies component malt whisky for a number of blended options coming from Inverhouse distillers, which include Catos and MacArthur's, and most notably Hankey Bannister, which is a blend I recommend you look out for. What's going on here is that when you have blended Scotch, you've got a percentage of grain whisky which is a lot cheaper to make than malt whisky. So it means that if you've got the malt whisky carrying more flavour than normal, you can use less of it, right? And use more grain whisky from column stills from a mixed mash bill, with corn and wheat and rye and just whatever. And Balmenach really fits that role. A big, beefy, fruity, I wouldn't call it a monster of a malt. That's going a bit too far. I mean, Laphroaig's a monster of a malt. We're not in that sort of scale of things. It's just substantial. And one reason for this is that this distillery uses worm tub condensers. Now, most distilleries use what are called, I've completely forgotten what they've called. I'm just going to carry on. Let's have a wee sniff of this and then I'll remember. Tube and shell condensers, which means that when they're cooling the whisky down, as it comes off the still as a hot vapour, it goes through basically a circular domestic radiator type thing with cold water flowing through it, and it's very efficient, and it does the job quickly and effectively, and in doing so it produces cleaner spirit. But you know and I know that as time goes on, we like the messy spirits. We like the spirits that are just a little bit harder to get to know, so long as they're well made. I've really enjoyed this. You can see how much I'm enjoying this. This is from Signatory Vintage 100 Proof Collection. Been a big fan of most of these bottlings, not all of them, but most of these bottlings. Bottled at 57.1%, big, beefy banger strength. This is 9 years old, distilled in 2016, natural colour, unchill filtered. It says in the label, right there in the label, where it matters, good news, we can proceed with confidence. And it's a first fill Oloroso sherry butt matured whisky, which means that they've used very large barrels, roughly about 450 to maybe 600 litre capacity, which kind of slows down the maturation slightly, but you still get a lot, particularly from fresh or what's called first fill sherry casks. You get a lot of the residual of the previous content of the cask, which was sherry. So I'm looking for these dried fruit notes. I'm looking for plum and fig and raisins, that sort of thing, and I am not disappointed. Balmenach works very, very well with sherry cask maturation. In fact, this is a bit of a sherry monster. As soon as you nose it, it's a composite. It's like Christmas cake, figs, dates, heavy dried fruits. Prunes, yeah, prunes. Totally. Prunes are good for you, you know that. Raisins, rich raisins, and quite integrated spicy moments as well. And one reason for this is, I mean, we're not just talking the flavour here and the smell. It's substantial. And that substantialness is coming from the use of the worm tubs, which I'm going to focus now because I've let the whisky open up in the glass, so I'm going to smell it and taste it now. But I'm going to come back in review number 1110 extras shortly, because this is review 1110. And I'm going to kind of go into a little bit deeper about these worm tub single malts and why, when we get more experience with whisky, it's a wonderfully engaging sort of detective work thing to kind of chase down some of these really substantial, beefy single malts, so long as our palate has developed enough that we're actually going to enjoy them rather than be intimidated by them. So here we go. And by the way, I've got a cat incoming. He's going to jump up here shortly, just to pre-warn you, so I don't want you shocked, surprised, or pooping your pants. Hello, Fluffy. Hello, you little bism. He's content to just scratch the carpet, yeah? You never knew there was a carpet in the bothy. There isn't. There's actually just a couple of wee rugs. In case I drop a bottle, it's less likely to smash on the floor. Rich, substantial, clean, fresh sherry. We're off to a good start. It's that kind of rich, wintry, fruitcake, Christmas pudding, clouty dumpling type note. Taste. Full strength. Immediately. Fizzy, sherbety, sherried, and very accessible. I can notice some mintiness in its short, sharp shock of a development, a little bit of herbaceousness, and some soft, cereal-driven, savoury notes. A little bit umami, a little bit dusty, a little bit complex. And this is at 9 years old. So at 9 years old, coming from a butt rather than a barrel, there is less cask domination of the experience due to the lower volume to surface ratio of the casks. So we're getting quite a spirit-driven experience. You don't have official bottlings of these. These are only available from official bottlings. Oh my goodness. I'm going to hold this up. I'm going to hold this glass up. Look at the threads. Look at the symmetry of that. That's absolutely shocking. Excuse me. That's better. And yeah, I'm going for a third spoon. Super dense whiskey. Very substantial. You tend to find this from distilleries using worm tubs. And for a simple reason is copper has an alchemaic effect on alcohol. It has a tonic effect. It tends to encourage the retention of flavour. We see this in Springbank. We even see it, funnily enough, in Glenfiddich. But you can soon find a list of the distilleries that actually use worm tubs. In fact, a very recent new distillery build on Islay called Ardnahole have installed worm tubs. Worm tubs work spectacularly well for heavily peated whiskey. They actually amplify the peatiness. And here we are, it's just a wonderful example of that. As soon as I tasted this bottle at a whisky evening at a retailer's, I immediately bottled it to review it for you because this is a single malt whisky I've never mentioned before in my channel after all these years, and it proves a point. It doesn't matter how long you've been around Scotch whisky, there's always something new to discover. Let's go back to the smell. I've added 3 teaspoons, a whopping 15 millilitres of water to this dram. Even by my standards, that's a lot of water. But it's bringing down the strength of the alcohol, making it more palatable, but importantly, at the moment, all that concentrated flavour from the higher strength still remains in the glass. It just doesn't disappear as if by magic. It's still there and will be for the next few hours. On the nose. Slightly dusty. Cigar box. Leathery notes. Really old-fashioned. You know, when you go into an old car where the leather seats are worn away and you've got that smell of old wiring, mineral oil and quality components. It's got that kind of smell. An enormously nostalgic smell. And also of a very well-made whisky. I must admit, going by this, Balmenach really know their stuff. This is superbly well made. Very flavour forward. As I mentioned, it's only available amongst the independent bottlers. And it's a reminder why the independent bottlers are so important. And I'm delighted to be reviewing this for you because for many of you, it's the first time you're hearing about this whisky. And when you go out to your specialist retailer to look for it, because you won't find it in travel retail, you won't find it in Amazon, you won't find it in stores. You're going to the specialist where they specialise in special bottlings. And this is where you'll see it from the independent bottlers, whether it be the Scotch Malt Whisky Society or from Signatory or from a few other independent bottlers who can get their hands on a cask of this, which is well worth getting your hands on. Absolutely. Taste. I've given it a good 10 minutes. Very spicy. Intensely spicy. Super concentrated, sweet and sour. Almost burnt toffee mild aniseed note on the arrival. Rich, gingery, caramelised development that kind of starts to extend, and then it gets fresh and minty and zesty with a hint of chilli. And this kind of bothered me initially. I thought, oh, chilli, has this been rushed? But no. It settles down over time. The finish is soft caramels, slightly tannic and slightly gingery and ever so delicious. Now, I poured a glass of this yesterday. At this point, you can see the Scotch mist thoroughly embedding itself into the whisky. And what I noticed, and I'm doing this more and more as time goes on, is leaving whisky for a few hours just to see which direction it goes. So I'm going to set you a challenge with this, because this is the perfect malt to do this experiment with. Pour yourself a glass in the morning before you go out to do your daily duties or whatever you're doing. And when you come back at night, you've left it with a spoon of water and a lid on it. Right? So you haven't brought it down too much. And then pour a fresh glass and give it, as one should, a minute in the glass for each year in the cask. And then what happens is this, hang a bit, I'm looking at this wondering if it's even the same whisky. Look at the difference in colour. Excuse me. Yeah, it is. I added a lot more water than I thought to this one. What you'll notice is when you go between the two whiskies, they're immediately recognisable for what they are, being the same spirit. But with the one that's had quite a number of hours and some water in it, something happens. Just the nature softens, the richness remains, the intensity remains, but you get a much softer, more rounded delivery of the experience. It doesn't have the edginess that the fresh pour has, to such an extent. Oh yeah. Yeah, I added a lot more water to this, but even after 24 hours, it's still intact. You would not, I can assure you, you would not get this with a chill filtered whisky, because chill filtered whisky is denatured. It's for people who think they drink whisky but are not that interested in it. That's who goes for chill filtered whisky. Much fresher, much zestier, much more immediate, much more on the attack. This is behaving like a malt monster. This is it, softened, mellowed, and partially refined by time. It's a fascinating experience. I hope you get the opportunity. And I've reviewed this whisky rather than one of the main headliners like Talisker, because I'm just getting increasingly, and I'm talking about me and my palate, I'm just getting increasingly disappointed by whiskies that are industrially chill filtered, because they simply don't deliver the same quality of experience. And when the industry professionals assure you and reassure you that in fact chill filtration is improving and helping to stabilise and deliver a whisky experience, trust me in this, they're talking a load of BS and bollocks. Springbank don't have their reputation by chill filtering their whisky. And anyone who tells you that, oh no, we can't export it to someone else until we've chill filtered it because of their local laws, I suggest, in good faith, that you are being misled and disingenuously flannelled by someone who's only doing their job. And furthermore, they're being economical with the truth. Oh. Who'd have thought in this day and age? Let's give this a malt mark. I'm giving this, for the sheer enjoyment and the size of the experience, I'm giving this 84 out of 100. A young, fresh, fueled up, sherried single malt, absolutely delivering a dramatic show of single malt Scotch whiskiness, which I'm happy to endorse because I bought this bottle, and malt mates, I'm glad I did. So we'll see you shortly for the extras, in which I'll talk a little bit more about the background to this malt. Bye-bye.